All right, welcome back, guys. Today I'm going to be explaining the new format of my teachings, and this is through a flowchart. And what you can see with the flowchart is that this is fully interactive, where you can click on every section that you want to go to, skipping all of the useless stuff that you don't. So let's say for 2, creating a process cost report, if I just want to look at the step 2 again and refresh myself, I can click on it and then look at all the points, use the count, and then once I'm finished, I can just go on the top right, click my map, and it brings me back. So let's say if I want to look at the formulas, once I looked at the whole chapter, I can click on the formulas and I have all my formulas for this chapter. Once I'm done again, I could just click on the map and then I could just pick wherever I want to learn from next. All right, let's get back to the video. All right, guys, today I'm going to be teaching chapter 4 process cost systems. And then we're going to be looking at 1, process cost accounting. What is it? Who uses it? 2, creating a process cost report, looking at what is a process cost report, and looking at the 4 steps in making a process cost report. And then if you guys want on your own, you guys can look at the formulas. So starting off with process cost accounting, what is it? Process cost accounting is an accounting method to track and allocate costs of production. Process costing allocates materials and conversion costs. Just a reminder that conversion cost is labor and overhead. Process costing is used in the production of high volume identical products. Example of high volume identical products are paper, cement, generic drugs, food and beverages, and etc. These products are produced with the same process every time. So, process costing accounting uses departments for each level in the production process. So, looking at a cookie company, we have the mixing department, the baking department, the packaging department, and then the sales department. So, within these departments, you have to, I'll get the pen here. So, first, we mix our cookies, and then once we've finished mixing, we send it to the baking department. And then once the baking department is finished, we send it to the packaging department. And then I can start my sales department. But I can only start, let's say, I can only start the baking department once my cookie is finished mixing. So process costing is the opposite of job order costing, which we learned in a previous chapter, which is the production process changes every time and your production process is unique for every product that you make. So who uses process cost accounting and like why do we care about it? So operational managers use process cost accounting for cost information, control processes, set product pricing, and make strategic decisions. These are figured out after creating your process cost report. So once you've created your process cost report, now you could find and look at their cost information. You could see if we need to control processes or not. We can see if we need to change product pricing, and we can also see any strategic decisions with our processes. So now looking at 2, creating a process cost report. What is it? So a process cost report is a document that provides detailed information about costs incurred during the production process. There are 4 steps in the creating a process cost report, which I'll explain now. So step 1, calculate physical unit flow. So physical units just refer to the actual count or the quantity of items being produced or processed. Physical units help in tracking the flow of goods through the production process, and this is why we need to keep track of it. So here are the used accounts we use when calculating physical unit flow. If this is a lot to understand, don't worry. When we get to the examples, everything will make sense and all the accounts you will be seeing used for those examples. So the account 1 looking at is the beginning work in process inventory or BWIP. So the definition is units not completed during the previous period and are still in the process as the new period begins. So an example of this is at the start of the month, the factory has 200 electronic gadgets that are halfway through the assembly. So if we look at it, let's consider that every month is a new period that begins. So the factory has 200 electronic gadgets that are halfway through the assembly line at the start of the month. That means we have 200 beginning work in process units. Our next account is the started into production. This refers to the number of units that are introduced or initiated into the current production process. An example of this is throughout April, the factory starts the production of an additional 1,000 electronic gadgets from scratch, adding them to the production process. So you could see here when we say start or adds or starting from the new production process, this is when we know that it belongs to the started into production. Then we have our total units to be accounted for. This is just the sum of beginning work in process inventory that I just explained and started into production. So looking at our example again, total units to be accounted for is just 200, which came from over here, plus our 1,000, which is from right here, which equals to 1,200. This is our total units to be accounted for. So let's look at our first Excel example. So step 2, calculate equivalent units of production. Equivalent units of production is a way to measure how much work is done even if it's not completely finished. Equivalent units of production is to make sure you're counting all materials, including those not finished, because at the end of a period, at the end of a month, let's say, it's not guaranteed that we finish every single unit that is produced or is in the process of being produced. So an example of this is if you have a cookie company with 2 departments, let's say shaping department and baking department, and let's say you have 1,000 cookies that are 100% complete, this means that we have 1,000 equivalent units of production. We know this by doing 1,000 times 100% that they give us. Let's also say that we are shaping let's say shaping cookies is 50% of the work and we are shaping 500 cookies. We would have 250 equivalent units of production from using 500 cookies times 50%. We are counting the units that are equivalent to being finished. So here are the used accounts for equivalent units of production. So account 1 is completed and transferred out. This refers to all the units that have been fully processed and moved out of the process. Ending work in process inventory, or EWIP, refers to the goods that are unfinished at the end of the accounting period. This will be completed in a future period. Total units to be accounted for is the sum of completed and transferred out and ending work in process inventory. Now we're going to look at our Excel example. We're going to be doing the first example for our Excel. So this is our step 2 equivalent units of production. So let's look at our giving data. So we have BWIP, which is beginning work in process. So we have 1,000 widgets where 60% complete for direct materials, 40% complete for conversion costs. Next, we have started into production where we have 4,000 widgets. Completed and transferred out where we have 3,500 widgets. And then we have our EWIP, which is ending work in process, where we have 1,000 widgets, where 75% complete for direct materials and 50% complete for conversion costs. So the first thing we're going to do is do our physical units. So completed and transferred out. So on Excel, you can just click the where you want to actually insert it. So like right here, it would be D15. I do the equal sign and then I select complete and transferred out 3,500 since that's the amount of units we are given. Then ending work in process inventory, so it's EWIP. We're given 1,500, and then this total units to be accounted for, if you hover over it, it's just the sum of completed and transferred out and then ending work in process. So if you guys see, I'm doing D15 plus D16. So now for direct materials, completed and transferred out. So it's gonna stay as 3,500 since we're not given any percentages on this one. And then ending work in process, since we're giving a percentage, so it says 1,500, we're 75% complete for direct materials. So I'm gonna do a star, which means times, and then I'm gonna write 75%. Or you guys can do that or this 0.75. So I'll just show you guys. So gives you the exact same number, or 77%. Gives you the exact same number. This is just the sum again of both. And now we're going to do the exact same thing for the conversion cost. So completed and transferred out is again 3,500 since we're not giving any equivalent units or percentages. And then ending work in process, we're giving our 1,500 times, and it says here 50% complete for conversion costs. So 50%, and there you go. Now we just do this plus that, enter, and there you go. We have our total units to be accounted for, and this is for step 2, equivalent units of production. So step 3, calculate the unit production costs. So unit production cost is the cost to produce 1 unit of a product. Unit production cost considers all costs involved in the production process. Calculating unit production cost gives you a per unit cost. So that's our goal that we're calculating in step 3, our per unit cost. So here are the used accounts for calculating the unit production costs. We have our beginning work in process, which is costs associated with beginning work in process. Started into production are costs for unit started in production. Total cost to be accounted for is the sum of beginning work in process and started into production. Then we have our total cost. This is the sum of all costs related to direct materials or conversion costs. We're going to have to do a total cost for both direct materials and conversion costs in the current period. And we can find our current cost by just looking, let's say if they give us an example of giving data, we could just look anything that has to do related to the direct materials and related to cost, we just add it up. So equivalent units, this refers to the expression of the work done on partially completed units as if they were fully completed units. So what I explained before, so equivalent units is equal to your total units accounted for. And then your new unit cost is just A divided by B. It's your price per unit, or this gives you your price per unit slash your per unit cost. And if it doesn't make sense, A is right here. So you do your total cost divided by your equivalent units. So let's look at the first Excel example, step 3 unit production costs. So you can see we have everything from step 1, physical, like all of this. Step 2, we calculated all of this. And now we're going to be calculating our step 3, so all of this. And you can see on the right, this is our given data of everything that we need or know for our step 3. So the first thing we're going to do is look and find our beginning work in process. So I'm going to do an equal sign under direct materials. So when we're working under direct materials, we want to find anything that's related only to direct materials. So looking at our given data, we see our direct materials cost in BWIP. BWIP stands for beginning work in process. So this is what we're going to include in our beginning work in process. Now started into production for direct materials. So we look again. So we have direct material cost for BWIP, which we just used. Now we have conversion costs in BWIP. This is related to conversion costs. We have percentage completion, direct materials added, and this is what we're going to be using. Since we're going to be using direct materials added because that's what we're adding or started into production. So now we just sum these up for the total cost to be accounted for. And now we do the exact same thing, but for conversion. So we're going to look, where is our conversion cost for the beginning work in process? You can see it's 800 over here. Then we're going to do the same thing for started into production or added in this case. So it's right under the direct materials one. And then once again, we're just going to add these two together. And then we're going to sum direct materials and conversion. I hope this makes sense. If you guys have any questions, just leave it in the comment section and I'll try to answer you guys. And so you can see there. And now we're going to look and calculate our unit cost or per unit cost. So total costs, we could see that that's what we just calculated. And this is why we do this first. So we can calculate our total cost for direct materials. And then equivalent units, this is what we calculated in step 2. And this is kind of why we calculate things in steps. So we can use them later on. So we use that again. And now unit cost or per unit, we just do our total cost divided by our equivalent units, A divided by B, and that gives you $5. And we do the exact same thing but for conversion cost. So our total cost is what we just calculated in step 3. And our equivalent units is what is calculated in step 2. And then this total cost divided by equivalent units. And you could see here, total cost is in dollar signs, equivalent units is not in dollar signs because we are calculating this in units. These aren't actual money. And so if that just makes more sense and clear as to why that doesn't have a dollar sign. And we're just going to sum everything up. And then here, so this is our total cost, 9.61 when we take into a per unit for direct materials and conversion costs. So step 4, prepare a cost reconciliation schedule. So cost reconciliation schedule involves the process of making sure that the costs allocated to units add up to total costs incurred. So we are doing this step to see if total cost to be accounted for from step 3 adds up to total cost accounted for from step 4. So here are the used accounts for a cost reconciliation schedule. We have completed and transferred out. This refers to the cost of units completed in the process or transferred to the next stage of production. We have ending work in process, EWIP, cost of unfinished products still in the process at the end of the period, Direct materials is the cost of raw materials for the finished product. Direct materials here is equal to completed and transferred out plus your EWIP. Conversion cost is cost including direct labor costs and manufacturing overhead costs. Conversion cost is equal to completed and transferred out plus your EWIP that I'll show you guys in the example. And total cost accounted for is equal to completed and transferred out plus ending work in process. So here I'll show you the Excel example. All right, guys, so we're going to do our Excel example for step number 4, reconciling schedule. So here we're going to start with the direct materials completed and transfer out. So what we're going to do is do an equal sign and then find under direct materials completed and transferred out. This is the amount of units times, and you can do this with a star, times your unit cost for direct materials. So it'll be 5 in this case. And that gives you 5,500. We do the exact same thing for a conversion cost. So we find our completed and transferred out units times our unit cost. And then we could just sum this up. And then ending work in process, we do the exact same thing. Ending work in process is another way of saying ending work in process inventory. So that's what we're going to do. Step 2, click on the 100 times our unit cost. And same thing with conversion costs. We're going to do 50 times our unit cost of conversion. And then what we do is we just add this up. So that plus that. And then we can go here. Direct materials, I'll just do the sum of these two. And for conversion cost, I'll do the sum of these two. And total costs accounted for, we could do either this plus this, which gives you 11,300, which is identical to this. You can see if I copy paste it here, put the number. So you guys can see it's the exact same thing. And this is from total costs accounted for. So this is pretty much the reason why we do step 4, just to see if these two add up and are equal to each other. And what we can also do is, I believe if you do direct materials plus conversion costs, it also gives you 11,300. So this is pretty much step 4. It's just taking everything we just did from step 2, 3, and 1 and combining it to create something and make sure that our prices and units are adding up. And these are the formulas for the chapter. So thank you guys. And if you guys have any questions, just leave a comment below. And if you guys want access to the PowerPoint, just click in the link in the description.